Pencil Kings, 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 Pencil Kings.
You want this career, you want this dream, you got to go after it. And you got to, as my mom used to say, reach for the stars and catch a few on the way down.
All right, we are back. It is Wednesday, and this is the Pencil Kings podcast. Today, we are talking to the founders. Do you guys call yourselves founders? You can clarify that, but we'll go with founders for right now. The founders of Artistacon, not to be confused with Artistacon, which I just looked it up as an architecture symposium or something. So we're talking to artists. We're artists, so Artistacon. And so I'd like to welcome Chris Katsakis and Enrico Botta. I hope I said those correctly.
Absolutely.
To the call. And to start off, guys, why don't you give the listeners a 1 minute overview of what Artistacon is? I guess since there's both of you here, this is a first for us. You can take longer than a minute. Why don't you tell us about Artistacon as well as a little bit about your background, just a very Cliff Notes version, and then we'll get into the full story.
All right, well, you go first.
All right, I'll basically wrap up what Artistacon is. It's really it's a convention, but more of an educational symposium for the seasoned artists and aspiring artists and writers, basically celebrating the creative process. And we're looking to focus on mentorship of a new generation of these creators. So it's going to be held in historic Burlington, New Jersey. It's a lovely little town, Saturday and Sunday, September 17th and 18th. And it's an intimate, limited ticket engagement. And we're featuring guests of honor and feature artists. We have an artist alley, so to speak, as you would have as a con, but because of the numbers of people coming, we have much more focus on one-to-one where people are coming into the artist alley. We have lectures on our symposium panel. We have workshops. We have panels. We also have portfolio reviews. So it really is a combination of some fine artists, some commercial illustrators, and writers working in the fields of comic books, fantasy, and gaming, etc., and how they bridge between the two aspects of fine art and commercial fields.
Enrico, anything to add to that?
I'd like Chris to add a little bit about his background because he's cool.
Well, I went to University of the Arts in Philadelphia. I graduated in illustration many, many moons ago. And I worked as a freelance illustrator in all aspects of illustration, advertising, editorial, children's books. Worked in advertising, marketing for comic book properties in the past. We recently, I would say 4 or 5 years ago, started doing the con circuit, Enrico and I, because our backgrounds kind of mingled and we started working on some ideas together. And our first con was New York Comic Con, and that was pretty overwhelming. That was a huge artist alley, but we really enjoyed it, and we started doing the con circuit. But what we realized was we had so many people coming up to us and asking, younger people, and even people that might have never thought of getting into the industry, how do I break in? What do I do? Who do I go to? And we thought, why don't we create more of an educational con or convention or symposium, whatever, all these tag names, geared towards emerging artists and bring in some of the heavy hitters from the industry that have done these symposiums, and let's bring them all together and have a nice weekend where we can all collaborate.
Very cool. And Enrico?
Okay, let's see. So the only thing I can add to Chris's description, which was pretty thorough, of Artistacon, is that I'd say, again, I use my analogy of going to see your favorite band and getting backstage. I want this convention to be like a backstage experience. It's intimate. You come in and you can meet your favorite artists, writers, sculptors, or creatives, and really engage with them. And you can appreciate the art and the process of being creative and kind of the technical ability that kind of comes with it, or process. And you can really engage with that on an intimate level, or you can appreciate it as a fan. Like maybe you're the type of person that likes to watch a DVD and watch like special features and like behind the scenes kind of stuff. I think that if you're a comic fan, maybe you like that. You're like that as well, and you want to kind of see how things are done, or see how your favorite artist kind of does his work, and you can really enjoy it on another level that way. And then also hopefully buy some things from them as well. But yeah, I think that's what Artistacon is. It really takes away a lot of the fan layers of movies and comics and games, and really hones in on art, on the art of it, on being creative, on breaking into the industry, some behind the scenes, secrets, if you will, process, and we have, like Chris said, portfolio reviews, and then just getting on that intimate level, mingling with your favorite creatives and artists, making new connections, making friends, and kind of building a whole new network and taking it to the next level.
We've actually added some new guests that we haven't posted yet, but we have Sean O'Reilly from Arcana Publishing coming out to speak. He's the CEO, and he'll be speaking on transmedia and also on not just comic book publishing, but animation, because he's done a lot of animation with Arcanimation. We have Mike Gustovich, a very well-known penciler and inker. He's kind of returned to the con circuit in Ohio, and he's actually a personal favorite of mine when growing up. I used to love to read The Justice Machine. So that's the comic book he created, and there's kind of like a nostalgic feel for some of us here, because I'm in my 40s and I was a kid of the 80s comics, and Enrico's more a kid of the 90s comics with Image and all that. And actually Enrico worked for Todd McFarlane at the toy company sculpting toys. So, we kind of, both of us have an eclectic background working in different various aspects of art commercially. So this is why we're honing in on not just illustrators and comic book creators, but we have writers, we have people that have been editors. We're also going to have an aspect of how to submit and the process, the business aspect of art. There's a lot of these things that they just don't teach in art school.
Yeah, very lacking. And when we want people to know that kind of stuff, because that's the stuff that you really trip up on. I could find a million books on, how to draw dynamic layouts and perspective and anatomy, but like, how do I submit my stuff to a publisher? Every publisher is like different, but you need to know certain guidelines. How do I do that? Who do I talk to? What's the particular size of a comic book page? How do I create that template in Photoshop? Like, how do I do these technical things to get my stuff to a professional level? So I think some of those things that people are missing, I want to bring to some of the symposiums and lectures we have at Artistacon.
Yeah. And some of the guests of honor we have are Dave Palumbo, very well-known fantasy artist. Carl Potts, for many years, was editor at Marvel. In fact, he was, from my understanding, he was the one that kind of gave Jim Lee his first go. Our friend Mark Morales, who's a very well-known inker, done many things for Marvel. I mentioned Sean O'Reilly from Arcana Publishing, Mike Gustovich. Then we have the co-chair of the Pennsylvania Academy of Fine Arts, who's actually not only a good friend and former instructor from when I was a teenager, but she co-chairs painting, drawing, and illustration at PAFA. She'll be doing a lecture called The Technical Narrative from a Fine Artist Point of View. So this is what's interesting, is because to me, if you're looking to go into comics or fantasy or anything, your foundation in drawing and painting must be solid, especially form drawing, volumetrics, things like that, perspective, composition, anatomy. And these are things that you come to this symposium, you're going to get pretty much what I would say a week's worth in 2 days. And it's
crash course by some of the best in the industry. And you're going to get to kind of rub elbows with them and meet a lot of good people. And like I said, make friends and kind of strengthen your network and kind of just build your relationship with people within the industry. I think that's really important. And that's, like Chris was saying in the beginning of when we started talking about Artistacon, that's some of the things that we really loved about the con going experience ourselves before we started. We would go, when I started going to conventions, like, I don't know, very early 90s, like maybe 92 or not, something like that. Went to a convention and I had 11 by 17 Bristol boards with all my samples under my arm, trying to go in and break into the comic industry. But that's what I've always loved about it. And ever since then, I would go in two different levels. I'd go as a fan, and I'd go with my little portfolio or whatever I had, and I'd want to try to meet people and break into the industry. And eventually I ended up getting a shot at working with Todd McFarlane at McFarlane Toys, and I did toy design and sculpture for them, and that was like a really big deal, big accomplishment. And it wasn't the comic book industry, but it was close enough. I got to sit down with Todd and talk about making toys. I'm like sculpting a Hellraiser Tortured Souls figure with Todd McFarlane sitting next to me at my art desk. It was ridiculously cool, and I felt like I just want to do more of this. And I kept trying to meet people, expand that network, and just get into things. And fast forward now, and I'm trying to do more illustration. And I just recently had a gallery piece in Ben Templesmith's Dagon. That was a huge deal for me because I've always been a huge Templesmith fan. And now I'm trying to work on my own graphic novel book series called The Black Demon. And
actually, we worked on a book called Dark Antiquities, and we'll see where that goes. We kind of got a good review on Comic Wow, 8 out of 10. So,
but all this stuff that I've done has come out of this going to conventions and just starting to network and do that kind of stuff. And Chris and I realized that, hey, that's what we love. Like, we're artists, and we love talking about art, and we love talking to these creatives, and we love bugging the heck out of them at their tables and shoving our portfolios in their hands and stuff. And we thought, like, why not just have the whole thing that, why do I have to have anything else there? I just want that. I just want to be around artists and show them my art, look at their art, admire their stuff, have them hopefully like my stuff, and then just strengthen new friendships and hopefully create cool work and get more work out there.
Yeah, definitely. And the direction that I want to take this call is to address, somebody who's sitting there, they might not have been to a convention before. So just to sort of set the stage, I think 2 years ago we interviewed somebody he is on the comic circuit, and he was saying how it was getting quite crowded now with all the entertainment properties and all the fans, which is not necessarily a bad thing. But as a creative, you're sort of in a different camp than the people who are just pure fans. Like, they don't have any interest in drawing things or creating something. They like to appreciate the art. And we need these people to appreciate the art so that we can do what we do. But it's crowded, So I like that at Artistacon, you guys have consciously said, okay, this is going to be smaller. It's not that you're excluding fans, but the purpose of it is for the creatives. Is to give to a more intimate feeling where your chance of having your things looked at seriously is much higher. Your chance of networking with the right people is much higher because of the more intimate experience. And it might not be like that in the future. I feel like for people listening, what I want to impress upon you is that there's a beauty of being in on the sort of like the first go on things, because you get even more access than you might get in the future because you don't know what the future is going to hold. So for somebody who's sitting listening to this right now and thinking, okay, well, it's in New Jersey, I'm a few states away, or maybe I'm on the West Coast and I don't know how I can get to the East Coast. What can you say to those people, not just about going to Artistacon, but to any convention, and like make the case why it's so valuable to start going to these things versus then saying, well, I can watch a presentation from that person on YouTube, or I can do that. Like, there's something magical that when you're face to face, right? So what kind of experiences would people be missing out on if they just said, no, it's not, I can't afford it. It's out of my reach, because I feel like often there's so many things that are within your reach, but you just have to make the decision. But you won't know the value that you get until you're there. But maybe we can give some people some examples of the kinds of things that, like the intangibles, like, yes, you'll go there, you'll see a demonstration from a famous artist or a well-known artist or a great educator, but there's a lot of intangible things as well that you don't see on a website or you don't see on a pamphlet. Lifelong friendship. That I've never seen that on a pamphlet, but it's happened to me. I've made lifelong friends from conventions. So what are some of the things, because I haven't gone to a ton, and mine's mostly been in the video game space. So I'm not so familiar with the Comic-Cons. I've only been to a couple.
Well, I feel what we're seeing is, and you're correct, that pop culture, has overtaken the comics arena, and you have cosplay, you have big companies coming in and taking movies. And so, when we were teenagers, if you were into comics or any of that, you were like part of a minority. Now the minority's become a majority. So, but not everybody's interested in the comic book aspect. It's kind of, some people think it's an entree into other ancillaries, movies, toys, things like that. But why it's important to go face to face, and I tell this because I'm really the Generation X. I tell the millennials, just going online or just looking something up is not the same as physically interacting with somebody, and you never know. Like, I'll be honest with you, we're talking to one of our guests, and there might be a project coming out of it with a few of us. So it's like, I would never have thought of that. You need to have that face-to-face connection. And listening to them in a lecture is different in person. There is a organic quality, so to speak. It's like you become so focused. And other people may raise their hands and ask a question and this and that. But if you're there, I think you get a different perspective. I feel that we're really more of an educational symposium, maybe called con on the end, but this is for people that want to learn from the very best. And those that are coming are going to also collaborate and see old friends and, oh my God, I haven't seen you yet. So there's that feeling of camaraderie. I think there are shows that are very much geared towards, panels and things like that. But, you walk in, you can't even get in the room, you can't hear them. This won't be like that. This is a limited number in each room. It'll be an intimate gathering. And as far as your question about traveling, it's in Burlington, New Jersey, but it's off the New Jersey Turnpike. The river line from Philadelphia comes right into the city, steps away from the venue. We have procured some hotels in the area with a very good rate. I personally have traveled to go to these kind of things. If it's that important to you to further your education, further your craft, further your connections, I say take the chance. We feel that we might be catering to a local community, but you never know. I mean, I've gotten emails from across the nation already. So I say go for it. I say, you're going to experience something that's very unique, and hopefully after the first one, we have a second one and a third one, and it becomes something left for the community. And in 20 years, maybe it's not us running, it's somebody else. Yeah.
So, yeah, Mitch, you touched on something that's pretty important right now. I think at the big conventions, we are losing that aspect of the importance of the creator and the importance of where all of these other things come from. A lot of video game properties, movies, and entertainment start as an idea that some guy had or some kid had sitting at their drawing board and wondering how to get it out of their brain onto the paper. And then from the paper, it might have went to the screen, and then it might have blew up and got into the stratosphere of pop culture. It all starts with that artist and that creative impulse to kind of take your work and put it out there. And I think it's important for someone that is serious about that to get out there and experience things. It's one thing to watch a YouTube video or buy a book or get lost in the huge mix of these huge cons, which is also fun. All that stuff is fun, and all that stuff is part of it. But this is getting out there, and it's more visceral, and it's more interactive, and it's more right in front of your face. We might have a lecture about creative writing, and then right next door we have a we have a fine art painter doing a demonstration. You might peek your head in there and fall in love with that, and you wouldn't have done that if you weren't there and saw that and saw the canvas and saw the art being created and smelled the paint or whatever, and been like, oh my God, I want to paint too now, you know? So being there doing that is an experience you can't recreate at a large con, and you can't recreate online, and you can't recreate from a book. So that being said, we did bring up lasting friendships and camaraderie. That's so important. A handshake, a touch on the shoulder from somebody, that's going to last. This is a good job, keep going. Here's my card. I've heard that, and then built relationships off of that.
And I always say,
can't get that from an email.
Right.
Can't get that from an email.
And I always say, keep an open mind. I meet a lot of young people. This is all I want to do. I just want to do this. I don't want to do it. But you don't know where life is going to take you. I mean, I've worked in advertising, worked in children's book. I'm now back into comics. I mean, you could teach. This is what this is about. A lot of these guests of honor also teach. So this is natural to them, imparting their skills to the next generation of emerging artists. And to me, that's important. In my middle age now, and I feel mentorship has to really be something that is focused on. I think that, it's there, but you got to get the people together. And I think, we're in such a fast-paced society with social media and all that, things kind of get lost in the mix. But to have that one-on-one or create a friendship, as you said, and you have through the years doing these interviews, that's gold.
Drawing from a live model.
Yeah.
Just that we have live models that you can draw. Hey, you might make a good friendship there too with meeting people that are doing live drawing. You may look over, oh man, your stuff's really cool. Thanks, dude. And then boom, you have like a new artistic friendship. That guy could go on to make the next hit comic and then bring you along with him. You never know. So these kind of relationships are the things that we want to foster and build. But even just being there, a lot of people haven't even drawn from a live model,
yeah.
which is crazy. You have to draw from life. That's a big part of it, So those kind of things too, I'd say, are worth price of admission and getting in your car or whatever and coming out there and doing it. It's for the experience. Like, you want that next level experience. And again, even if you're not an artist and you appreciate art and you're coming as an art appreciator and you just love it, you want to come there to Artistacon and be in it as intimately as possible and just take the chance and do it. And I think you'll almost fall in love all over again with what you're really into because it's that much more engaging.
And we keep saying artists, but I want to throw in there writers too. Writing is a craft, and we mentioned we have some well-known writers, and we're going to have submissions on the website soon if you want to do writing samples, and they'll review it, and then we'll set up a time where they can talk to somebody. Or how did you get into writing for comics, or the kids market of comics? There's a big avenue that has been developing over the years where it's not just children's book. There's a whole section of comic book conventions where it's just the kids corner. And one of our guests, Mark Polton, has a very well-known children's book named Haiku, and it's been doing very well in that arena.
A Cat Named Haiku.
Yeah, Cat Named Haiku.
Cat Named Haiku. It's a great little book, and Mark will be conducting one of our panels on creative writing.
Right.
And again, when I say artist, I kind of tend to lump all this stuff like musicians, writers, sculptors. I lump it into the term artist because I'm sort of a curious kid and a Renaissance man in a sense. Like, I'd like to do everything, and I just consider it all art. So sometimes I'll say artist, and I mean writer. I mean writer. I mean pencil or ink or
Sculptor.
Illustrator, painter. I mean it all. It's all art to me. But it all comes back to that experience, and what I was saying is just appreciating art, just coming and being in it, and getting rid of all those different layers.
And we've made it pretty affordable. The 2-day pass for general admission is $79, a 1-day pass is $45, and we have a student 2-day pass of $49. And a lot of other symposiums charge quite a bit more for that. if you go to the bigger venues in New York City and things, even just for like a 4-hour symposium, you could do $200, $300, $400 for those few hours. So we're talking like from 9 to even 9 o'clock at night for both Saturday and Sunday. And, we encourage people, come on out, it's.
Oh, that's another thing I should add, like why you might want to take a chance and come to this thing, because you ever go to a convention and think like, I love that one guy, I love that artist or writer, it'd be cool if like I could buy him a beer and just pick his brain or whatever. I'm the guy that thinks that all the time. Oh, I'm gonna hang out with so and so tonight after this convention. It never happens, because it's too big. Everybody gets lost in the mix. You never meet up. But it's something like Artistacon. Your chances of that are even better. Like, oh man, maybe I'll go meet up with all these guys. I met this cool artist. I loved his lecture. I know he's going right across the street to the bar for the after party or whatever. And your chances of mingling with them outside of the symposium, outside of the convention are a lot higher, and to make new friends and go hang out away from that environment and kind of like, mingle socially.
And not only that,
and talk about art, and drink.
And a lot of these creatives are always looking for new talent on their projects. So, they might say, if you brought your portfolio and say, oh, I'd like you, we're going to work together someday.
Yeah.
And how many times we've seen that happen? And that's where that attention comes in, to actually get in a car, get on a plane, get on a train, come to the conference.
Yeah.
And it'll be a very unique experience.
Yeah, I think that's such an important thing to mention that you guys touched on a little bit, but I wanted to highlight it, was the idea of, like you said, next level, and sitting beside people, at a sketching, a live drawing session, and noticing somebody's work. And this is a thing that I've always found amazing at cons, is not necessarily the headline people that you meet, but the other average, we'll just call them average Joe. So if I went, I'm an average Joe. Other attendees are average Joes, but we all have like special things that we're working on, and we've set ourselves apart just by attending. So it's like you're now in the company of people who are way more serious about what they're doing than what you're finding in a lot of other places, because they're willing to travel to go to something. They're willing to take a weekend and be serious about their art, or whatever is. And this applies to all kinds of conventions. But you're now in the company of like the serious people who are, not necessarily movers and shakers, but people who are, actively pursuing their craft and growing as artists or as creatives, and you're rubbing shoulders with them, just like they're rubbing shoulders with you. And you might have a project that you can pass on to them. Or like a personal example was I had to go and eat. I was at Game Developers Conference and I had to go and eat. So I went to a burger joint, sit beside a guy. He's a huge casual games publisher, and we got tons of work from this guy.
Wow.
And just because I was by myself, I was sitting at having a burger, and I was like, hey, you got a pass. I see you, the is it called a lanyard?
Yeah,
whatever the thing is, the badge around your neck. It's like, hey, are you at the conference? Yeah, what are you doing? Just start up a conversation, and then, fast forward, it was years of working together. And, he wasn't on any panels or anything. It was just another quote unquote average Joe. And, but you've put yourself in this special category of like, you're there. Nobody else is there. You have a direct line of communication with everybody.
You make your own luck, essentially. You make your own luck in the sense that you have to create those situations.
Yeah, it's a lot of hard work, and that's what I say to young.
It's
people.
A lot of hard work to be lucky.
You want this career, you want this dream, you got to go after it, and you got to, as my mom used to say, reach for the stars and catch a few on the way down, and you tend to have that luck, as he says. And, what I loved is when we were exhibiting at Special Edition New York City. It's just like a smaller version of New York Comic Con last year. And I just started going around to these creatives and telling them the idea of Artistacon. And they're like, here's my card. Keep me, this sounds great. It was just like, I didn't have one person say, this is the most horrible idea I've ever heard. It was just, I was blown away. By the time I came back to the table, I was like, I can't believe the receptive of this.
So to finish off, how about some ideas for people who are going to attend Artistacon or any convention? Like, what are some of the things that you can do to prepare yourself? This is where one area where I've fallen down and made some mistakes. Like, one year I printed off, like, I think it was 500 was the minimum order of these folders with our logo and business cards and all this stuff, and we put them on the, I want to call it like the junk table, but there's like a table where you can just put all your stuff in. People kind of browse around, but I was left with like 450 because you can only put so much stuff on the table.
Exactly.
So that's something that I wouldn't do again, printing all this stuff off. For me personally, like I would look and see who's going or who might be attending, or maybe look on Twitter. Twitter didn't exist back then, but see who's attending, that you can maybe set some meetings up, or just say like, hey, I saw that you were going. I'll try and find you there. Just like plant the idea in somebody's head before you're going to go. But I'm sure you guys have a lot more experience of things that you could do to maximize your, not just at your conference, but any conference, things that you can do to maximize your experience for fun or for networking. There's a bunch of different ways you could approach it. But I think just being conscious is maybe step one, but then there's some specific things.
Yeah, so you want to be prepared. So you want to do a lot of preparation and think about your specific skill level, who your target is, what you want to break into, and then tailor your portfolio and your pitch and your collaterals, like materials, business cards, etc., to that. One thing that I see a lot of people do, and I'm included in this, especially when I was first trying to break in, is trying to do too much at one shot. Like you said, with your 450 folders. I might have a portfolio that had 20 illustration pieces, 10 sculpture pieces, some inking, some penciling, a script that I wrote, and shop that around. I think you're shooting yourself in the foot by trying to get into all that. You should really focus in on what you think your specialty is going to be. Hopefully it's what you're the best at, but if it's not what you're the best at, it's what is most important to you. And then try to tailor your portfolio to that and print up as much collateral as you think you'll use. So don't go overboard, especially if you're just starting out. So gauge your level. So are you just starting out? Are you like mid-career? Are you a pro trying to get more work? And you can print out the number of folders, postcards, business cards, like according to that. But you generally want to start small. I always say, keep it simple and kind of build onto that. When you're building also your, if it's an artistic portfolio, like painting, penciling, sculpture, only include your best stuff. Seriously.
Yeah, my one art teacher used to say in art school, you're always judged by your worst piece.
Yeah, exactly.
If there's something in there you're not sure of, don't put it in.
Yeah, hopefully you have some friends that are also artists, or even non-objective, non-artist fans. Have them review your stuff first. Then get a sense of what's good. Sometimes your best piece is the one you don't even like the most.
Yeah.
Or it might have taken you an hour to do, but that's like the best thing you have and everyone really loves it. Put that in your portfolio. Try to be a little detached of your emotions and put that stuff together. And have a target audience, whether it's the former editor of Marvel, an existing developer at Blizzard, or whoever. You're going to tailor the portfolio to that, and then show it. And that would be my advice. Keep it simple and only show your best stuff, and only print as much as you think you're going to get rid of. You don't want to have too much stuff hanging around, and I think that goes for self-publishing anything too. Printing way too many like books or posters or whatever, and you're never going to move them is a rough thing. So you want to try to gauge where you're at. Just be honest with yourself. Keep it simple, and I think you'll go a long way. Business cards are great. Postcards are pretty okay. I think if it's the right type of thing, like if you want to show off like a larger piece, or you're marketing a certain thing, like you have a book you're going to put out or something like that, a postcard's real nice. General, simple business card with your basic information. Make sure your contact information is on it. You don't just want to name an email. Put a phone number on there. Only give that to, the people you really want to give it to. You don't just like you said, put it on a table with all, if you don't want your phone number or something like that on there. So that's kind of my advice. Just kind of hone in on what you want. Focus on that. Make sure your contact information is clearly written on each piece of collateral, and give it to your target market. I think that's kind of my advice.
And then what about, because I think it's so important, and I was listening to another podcast recently, is having an idea of what you're going to do after the convention with like all these people. Like I've gone, I collect probably like 200 business cards when I would go to the Game Developers Conference, but then I really had a poor follow-up process. What do you guys have any recommendations for that? Because I want to arm people with the right knowledge of the things they should be thinking about. Of course, anybody can take these simple ideas and turn it into anything that they want to, but you've got your, I'm going to this conference, I'm going to set up in the right way, I figured out what I'm going to do for that, but then also I'm going to meet all these people, so how am I going to, what am I going to do? Because even if you, at minimum, sent one email to everybody whose card you collected and just say like, hey, it was awesome to meet you at the conference, and then one personal note, I feel like that, again, sets you apart from so many other people and gives you a huge leg up in just fostering that personal relationship a little bit further.
And if you have their address, I've actually sent personal cards, like a note or something, or I'd follow up, maybe a couple weeks down the line with another email. I think what Enrico and I have that really, what we've learned to have, is communication. You have to communicate in this field. You can't just wait for something to come to you, especially in the commercial genre. You got to go out and seek it. I don't mean being a pest or an annoyance to an artist, because that could be too much. But I'm saying, show interest, follow up, and, see what happens. And I always say, be gracious. Always be nice. You don't know who you're going to meet. You don't know what the next door will open. Don't burn bridges. Don't have an attitude of, well, I know this, and this is not what I want to do, and this is not my focus. I say always keep an open mind. A lot of these artists have been doing this for years, and they've changed with the industry, and the industry has changed. So what goes for one person may not go for the other, but I value these seasoned people because they're my mentors still. I think everybody has a mentor at any age you are, and that's very important. And I think that's something that needs to come back to the art community in general. I see a lot of students coming out of art school with six-figure debt, not knowing in which direction to go. They're overwhelmed. They just don't know what to do. The atelier scene has blown up because it's a third of the cost. They're learning basics of drawing and painting. Not everybody has to follow the same path. I mean, there's a lot of self-taught artists out there. Even though Enrico and I went to art school, I'll be honest with you, I don't know if I would go to an art school today. I might venture into the atelier or, just go to a lot of symposiums.
I switched up my degree. I started off at art school at University of the Arts in PA, and then I broke off of that. I ended up at Rowan University in New Jersey because I wanted to get a bachelor's degree. I wanted a more well-rounded degree than a BFA. Some people may disagree with me on that, but I wanted my first degree to be a BA. So I think getting a more well-rounded degree and then going to some sort of more focused kind of art education is even better. But the follow-up on Mitch was saying is he brought up a really good point about following up with after the convention, after meeting people. Chris also brought up a good point of sending personalized packages to these people. Keep in mind, whenever you go to any convention, you're going to get a portfolio review or whatever. Handing stuff to people at a convention is good, but also keep in mind that they have a ton of stuff that they're already carrying themselves. So handing someone a pile of your books or your artwork or whatever, that could get lost in the mix. So handing something simple like a postcard or a business card to them, and then following up with a personalized email, and furthermore, resending a hard copy of your portfolio or a link to your portfolio website or whatever. But sending that physical package to them, they'll get it in the mail and they'll be able to open it up when they get home. They're not going to lose it in their mix of con stuff that they carry around with all the time. So that's a good tip. So I'd say communicate strongly, like Chris said, don't be a pest. There's a fine line. I feel like I'm always being a pest when I follow up with people, but I try to give it some time, maybe like once a week or twice a month. You just touch base with these people and you let them know that you're interested, that you're serious, that you had fun meeting them. And
you'd be surprised sometimes they reach out to you before you reach out to them.
Yeah, that's always the best.
Yeah.
And you're like, okay, now the floodgates are open. I shall pester you forever until the end of time. But that's my advice. Definitely follow up and try to do something personal for the follow-up and stay consistent.
And also, don't get taken advantage of out there. There's a lot of spec work. There's a lot of people.
That's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast. Just don't do anything for free just because somebody promised you something.
Sometimes if it's something you're really you really have to gauge that yourself. If it's something you're very passionate about and you're like, I really want my piece in this book or this gallery or whatever, and if it means a lot to you and you're not missing your rent because of it, then there's sometimes that is okay, but work for exposure generally not so good.
Yeah. Because then you get a reputation.
Yeah.
So I can.
But I don't want to go down that road.
Yeah.
Did I touch on that?
Oh, that was great. And the only thing I would add, that one last comment onto that, is I've always felt like, don't work for exposure or like you said, like really consider it, but definitely do work for skill building. Like if it's a project that's going to make you grow and you're like, wow, this is a chance for me to learn something new. And like you said, you're not going to be out of your rent or get kicked out of your place because you took on a project. Don't be too afraid of it, because I feel like, especially for this podcast, I like to talk to the beginner artists. I know I did a lot of stuff for no pay when I was beginning, but I had to learn. And there's just like a lot of times when you're actually like working as part of a team, or you have access to an art director who's going to kick you in the butt, or you're working with other good artists, you can learn a ton that you wouldn't necessarily have a chance to in school, but you just have to kind of balance it with where you're at in your career. So we went a little bit long, but I want to wrap up. So the website is Artistacon, Artistacon. And Chris and Enrico, do you guys have personal Twitters or websites that we can direct people to?
Sure. I'm at ebotta.com. And I'm also Enrico Botta on Instagram, and I'm Enrico Botta on Twitter as well.
And you can see me at chriskatsakis.com. And I just want to, you can go to artistacon.org or .net. It'll just forward it to it. But all the information on there, hotel at the bottom, hotel links, venue information, contact information. We also have a volunteer form we've added. Some people are looking, I offered to volunteer. We're always looking for volunteers. I mean, get you in and you don't pay a ticket. You learn from these guys and hey, you get a free T-shirt.
Oh, man. Well, there you go. I was blown away when you said what the price of the convention is. It's far lower than I thought it was going to be. So I feel like for anybody listening, if you're in the area, I don't see any reason why not to go. And I would just go ahead, get your ticket, book it on your calendar. It's something to look forward to. And if you for some reason can't afford it, just like you said, volunteer. There's spots open that I'm sure there's help. And like a little secret of conventions is that sometimes the volunteers actually get better access to a lot of things than the attendees. So I'll just throw that out as well. It sounds like an awesome convention. I'm going to see where I'm at that time. I'll have to take a flight, but still, I think it would be very cool to come and meet you guys and see some of the people there.
Did I mention our live models are very attractive?
Yeah. And they're clothed. They're going to be costume models.
Yeah, costume models, props, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But thanks.
Awesome.
Thank you, Mitch. That's very awesome.
Well, yeah, thank you guys so much for telling us about this. And listeners, go to the site, book your ticket. Do it. I'm commanding you. And I wanted to give a shout out to Corn Fu, James Cornett, he's a community house leader inside the Pencil Kings community. He's done so much to help Pencil Kings. He arranged for this podcast to happen, and I really appreciate everything that he does. And just an all-around awesome guy.
Thanks, James.
He's a wonderful person.
He's an amazing guy and a great artist.
Yes.
He's a fantastic dude.
Yes, he is.
Check out his work.
Yes, Corn Fu.
If you haven't already. I'm sure you have, guys.
So thanks, guys, and we'll be back next week with another episode of the Pencil Kings podcast. Take care.
Thanks, man.
Thank you. Bye.
Artistacon demands patience, skill, years of practice.
Ah, you talk like a fool. I would trade a century of practice for an ounce of inspiration.